Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome to the GDG May live stream. Um, it's good to have everybody here. Hopefully, there's a few people joining us. Looks like the live chat is working. There we go. So tonight we've got some talks lined up for you, and hopefully you will enjoy them. So let's get into this. So feel free to share, tweet out, or whatever the link to this particular event. YouTube link. If anybody wants to watch it, the video will still be available afterwards. If anybody wants to come back and watch it, so do that. Upcoming events. We've got more. Um, so yeah, so for upcoming events, we're going to be organizing more events, and we'll be getting through those. So there's going to be lots of openings for people to talk. If you would like to come along and speak for us, please let us know. There's our email address. You can send us a tweet at GDG Dublin, or I don't know, leave a comment on this video or something like that. We'll figure it out. So tonight's agenda. First off, Raul is going to give his talk, Training the Next Generation. And then Naomi and Raul and hopefully Darren, but we'll see, are going to have a roundtable discussion about training from home and learning at home. So yeah. So without any further ado, I'm going to switch over to Raul here. And transition. Raul, you're up. Oh, Raul, you're up. Hmm? I can. Oh, crud. What I do? You can do? Hmm. The levels go up and down when he speaks. Huh? You can still hear me. That's a problem. I understand that. Hmm.
Um, it, Rory, Raul is
Yeah.
in both. You're both as a human and as a presentation. And your presentation, when you open your little people bar, your presentation is muted, but you as a people is not.
Okay. So that should work now, right? My presentation shouldn't have any sound.
But I think perhaps your voice needs to have a voiceover there. Like
this. Does it work now?
it looks like you're unmuted. Give it a try.
Yeah. So that was the presentation audio. I think it's if you have videos or something like that. But it shouldn't make a difference.
Yeah, I was just watching your time delay on the YouTube, and it like turned your microphone off. It says your microphone was off.
Oh, okay.
Oh, they're saying they can hear us.
So I continue then. So I restart. But I'm going to talk about training the next generation, which is about bringing kids into IT and STEM in general. And how do we go about that? It's slightly more complicated than training juniors. It's also a slightly more fun. And it's a good way to start building community at a different level. So you probably have heard about Coder Dojo and Code Club. And in fairness, it gets a little bit confusing because they are fairly similar, both of them. They overlap a little bit. And to make things even more confusing, they are both under the umbrella of the Raspberry Pi Foundation. So it's kind of complicated. I'll try to explain to you what the difference is, but in the Q&A afterwards, I hope Darren can make it and he can tell you even in more detail. So in first, Code Dojo is the community of free, open, and local programming clubs for young people. I didn't make this up, I take it from the website. While Code Club is a global network of free coding clubs for 9-13 years old. So still is very, very, very similar. If we look at the size, we can see that Code Dojo has like over 2,000 dojos, over 100 countries, and about 58,000 members. And Code Club has like a lot more clubs, 13,000, significantly more countries, 160, and a lot more members, 180,000 members. But the members per club is smaller than the number of members per dojo. And why is this? So back to the only difference is that dojos are relaxed and fun programming clubs, which still gives us exactly the same information, except that they are based on community areas, like community hub, for example. While Code Clubs is about enthusiastic people giving an hour a week, and some local space offers space and equipment, and then you get the free resources online, and kids in the community learn to code. So, all in all, the key difference is that code clubs are usually linked to some organization. Most of them are linked to a school as some sort of after-school project where kids that are members of this school can attend the code club, or some other area that offers the space and the equipment. And the difference with the Code Dojos is that Code Dojos are more community-based. They are not linked to any sort of organization. And therefore, there's a lot more people joining each Code Dojo, and there's a lot more flux. Well, in a code club, you used to have the same people coming week after week, and Code Dojos, kids may show up and then don't show again in a while, or get a lot more people. It's a little bit more dynamic in that way. So that is essentially the only difference, because if you look at the resources, for Code Dojo, you got this HTML and CSS, Scratch, wearables. All these SUSI cards are essentially super mini projects that teach some concept to the kids. And these are the recommended resources for Code Dojo, but if you look at the ones from Code Club, they are essentially the same. We got the Scratch, HTML and CSS, Python, Raspberry Pi, SenseHat, whatever. And each one of these modules has projects. So at the end of the day, each one of these projects is very similar to a SUSI card in the way that it's similar to a code lab that we are used to use, right? So you have something very specific, very concrete, you do it, you learn some new concept, then you can move into the next one, and you keep building up concepts until you kind of master whatever is in this module. Code Club are meant to be a little bit more structured in the sense that you have module 1, module 2, module 3, and if you go through all the modules, then it's a little bit like a summary or an agenda of you hit this milestone, this milestone, this milestone, and Code dojos are a little bit more like figure out what you are interested in doing and go for it. But at the end of the day, code clubs are, a lot of them are self-paced as well. So this difference is more in paper than actually in reality. So something I really, really like about both of them is that diversity and inclusion are taken very, very seriously, in terms that you want to have boys and girls, you want to have people with disabilities, and they publish the Code Dojo Accessibility Guide to give the way that how you organize your club, how you communicate about your club, where you put your Code Dojo that can be accessible for people in wheelchairs, with people with problems with vision. All that is in the accessibility guide, and it's at the core center of both organizations, because they want to help all kids, and we want to promote that diversity is something we learn since the very beginning on the very first community about coding, and not something that we have to learn afterwards, as some of us had to do. So I really, really like that about Code Club and Code Dojo. And then there is Coolest Projects, which is really, really cool. Once a year is a world's leading technology fair for young people. This is made. It's an exhibition for kids, by kids. Kids of different coded clubs and coded dojos go there, showcase their projects. It's huge, and all the kids go around, see what other kids are doing, and it's absolutely fantastic. It was meant to happen on the 6th of June. Obviously, it's been cancelled, but it is going online. So we'll see how Coolest Projects goes online and how it actually works out. It's going to be quite different than making it in a very big venue with all these projects where you can physically interact with them. But let's see how it goes. I'm really hopeful that this will open the door to get people from more places that couldn't travel to the only 3 locations where Coolest Projects were done. So all in all, this is something you shouldn't miss, online or in person. So this year you have no excuse to not be able to travel to the RDS, or if you're outside Dublin, to not be in Dublin. So with that, I round what Code Clubs and Code Dojos are. And I want to tell you a little bit about what I've done with them. What is my personal experience? So I run a Code Club myself with an organization called Snowflakes, which is a support group for autistic kids. And that's the organization that provides us with the equipment and with the space. That's why we are a Code Club and not a Code Dojo. And we met once a month for an hour and a half, and we get some kids to do whatever projects they're interested in. It looks like this, right? So we get all the kids. Some of them need like parent supervision, and they all go around playing with the computers, making their games, and all that stuff. Obviously, it doesn't look like this nowadays. It looks a little bit more like this. It is the same kids again, and we moved to weekly clubs of only half an hour, and it's working out quite well because it helps kids with the structure, having something to do, seeing each other, and it's quite nice. So what we actually do in the Code Club? What is what I find more interesting? Oh, well. If you want to know more about this particular Code Club and about inclusion and diversity on Code Club, there's the Hello World magazine. The issue from past January, I think, past December, is all covering the topics of diversity and inclusion, and there's a small article about my Code Club in there. So we mostly use Scratch. For those of you who doesn't know it, is like writing code, but using puzzle pieces. If they link together, they work, so there's never a compilation error. And it's a really, really nice way to get kids starting with coding. You don't have to type, you don't have syntax errors, you don't have compilation errors. If things fit, if something is a conditional, it's going to be green. If something is control flow, it's going to be orange. If there is an operation between different variables, it's going to be with rounded corners. And if something needs to be a condition, it will be sound like this hexagonal shape. And it helps a lot figuring out how things get together. And it's also very oriented to making programs that are very visual, mostly games, which is what most kids are about. On top of Scratch, we also use the microbit, which is a very, very nice introduction to IoT and electronics. The microbit is a very small controller that has like a matrix of LEDs, an accelerometer, and a few buttons, and you can control them writing code in the same way with Scratch and blocks. It's not Scratch, but the language is very, very similar. You can also write JavaScript. If for whatever reason you want these kids to not want to write code ever again, you can teach them JavaScript straight away. But I would recommend you to use the block system as long as you can. This is done by Microsoft, and it's really, really nice. They have a simulator on the web. You don't need the actual device, but it's much nicer if you have the device. You can also get the microbit and plug it into this sort of cars, which we also have as part of the material of our code club, which is really, really cool. The one on the left, you can make it follow a line with just programming it with blocks. It's really, really cool. We also have Lego WeDo, which is Lego for education. You have some engines, some stepper motors, LEDs, sensors. You can also build a car that follows a line with this, and it's Lego, which is always a plus. And both of these, microbit and Lego, they work standalone, but you can also put them as a module on Scratch. So you can make a program in your computer that controls a Lego construction that is outside. Or you can make self-driving car that sends information to your computer. Or you can make a remote control on Scratch for the car. Or you can use the microbit as the controller of a game. You have a lot of different ideas, and kids will come with even more crazy ideas all the time. Something a little bit newer is called Arcade. This is also made by Microsoft. It's similar to microbit, and you have a very small device. It looks a little bit like a Game Boy, and you again can program it with blocks, and it's designed to make games, of course. And it has a little bit of a framework, what you would expect from a game engine, like cameras following sprites, making animations, having projectiles or players or stuff like that, tile maps, and all in all is really good way to get the next step into making games with something that is more like a game engine. This has been the biggest success of any framework I've ever introduced to the kids in the 2 years I've been running the Code Club. They absolutely love the Make Code Arcade. Once a year, Mission Zero, you get the Astro Pi, which is a Raspberry Pi with the Sense Hut that lives in the International Space Station. And the kids send programs. They run, and they send them back a diploma saying your code ran in space this date, and this is the place where the International Space Station was. We made a nice pixel art, and we sent it there past year. The kids got the certificate. They were super excited about it. This year we missed the deadline, so we couldn't send any new code there, but it happens every year, so it's really, really cool. And this one they have to do in Python, but it's cool. So about all this, what's in it for you? I would say you learn a lot by teaching, and you learn a lot by finding out the kids' approach to things. It is an absolutely rewarding experience that I love to do. And it's a way to get in touch with the community at the earliest stage. You can collaborate with an existing code club or coder dojo if you want. You can just drop by, see how they are structured. If you enjoy it, you can always join. Or if you know a place that could benefit from this and there's none around, you can start your own. It just takes a few steps, and it's super, super handy. And it's a great experience. I totally recommend all of you to try at least once. There was the joke about training the next generation, and that was a Star Trek joke, so I just have to do it. If you think this is something you could be interested on, make it so. And with that, I will open the floor for questions for Naomi, who is here with us, and I think Darren couldn't make it at the end. So, get it back to you.
Hi. So for me, I have worked with Coder Dojo before, and I know you've published this article in Hello World. But for you, like, what are the top 3 things when you're working with neurodiverse kids that like helps make the space feel a little more welcome for them, makes it a bit easier to work? And the second part of that question being, does that get more difficult when you're online?
So, great questions. I would say the kids are kids, and each kid is different. So, you just let them be and figure out what they need. Each kid is going to need a different thing. I have one kid that every 20 minutes needs to run around the table. And that's perfectly fine. You just see it doing it. You know he needs to do that. No one makes a mess out of it. It's how he is. It's what he needs. It's all fine. So just figure out what each kid needs and let them be. Find something that is they are interested on. And once you got that, but that's valid for every kid. They will just roll on with it. One thing that is amazing is that if these kids get a special interest in computers, they will learn everything. They will go beyond anything you can imagine, and they will come the next day. It's like, when did you learn all of this? Like, oh yeah, it was very interesting, so I was reading, and it's like, wow. Going online has made it harder in a way, but because it's every week, the kids are a lot more participative. You know, they show the projects to each other, they talk to each other. It's more about a social event of seeing the other kids and checking out what they are doing than me going around helping them with their programs, you know. So in that regard, the club has turned a lot more social and a lot less of me problem solving. I try to give them opportunities to talk about things, so it's not just a recording of someone doing live coding on Scratch. Well, these videos do exist, by the way. So I'm not sure if I actually answered your question.
No, I think you answered my question, and I think I guess I asked you because you're kind of the expert, kind of working in that space. But as someone who's worked with kids, I kind of assumed it would be an answer sort of like that. Because even when you're looking at, you know, quote unquote neurotypical children, one size does not fit all. And I guess, you know, just for the audience's curiosity, is that any different? And you're saying not really. So, you know, it's just good to know.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if Rory has any questions from the stream. Rory? Yeah.
The people on the stream can't hear me. Ireland now has a Leaving Certificate syllabus for computer science. Should more schools take this up, or do you think schools and government should promote clubs instead? That question came from Robert Vaughan.
Wow. So, in my opinion, I think code clubs and coded dojos are more for younger kids, like 8 to 12, when they are just curious about it. And it's a good way to get started. I don't think it's a substitute for a proper programming course at like secondary school, maybe. but it's more like early stages, and when they are trying to do it for fun, if you put it in the curriculum and they have to do it, you kind of force them to do it. It's not that good. If you get them when they're interested, it's probably better. But again, it's very open. Each kid learns whatever they want. So if you want to make them official, you have to give like a curriculum that they have to fulfill. So for younger kids, yes. For older kids, I think official will be better. I don't know. Naomi, what do you think?
I think the Leaving Cert is a really particular question. But I think in general, people should be excited about the stuff they're doing. So one thing I've done, for example, is co-organize Rails Girls Dublin. And that's usually for women, say, 21 to any upper age, who have been in another career or they've been tech adjacent or anything like that. And the goal with a 2-day workshop in something like backend programming is to get people excited, to get them less fearful of the black box in their computer, the terminal, and to build community. And, not all of those folks are going to walk away and become computer scientists, but many of them are going to walk away with the ability to build tiny algorithms to automate pieces of their job, to, make the work they're already doing a little bit better with computers. And my fear is that streaming people through a computer science Leaving Cert before they're in a full university education, depending on how it's taught, depending on the material, depending on the language or the problem solving or lack thereof, it's just going to turn people off and make them feel like they're not those kinds of folks that, do computers. And I just fundamentally don't think it's true. I think we can all computer at some level or another. And of course, that's a whole debate of, at what point are you engineering? But I just want people to be excited and really enjoy what they're working on. And I've found from the other side, teaching women who are in different careers, that you can solve problems with computers, actually gets them to understand it much faster and to be much more motivated to move through it than just saying, oh, here's some Python scripts. This is your future,
Turn this on. So thanks so much for asking that, answering that rather. Although thanks for asking it as well, Robert. It's a good question. We need good questions. Speaking of, I don't see any more coming through. The reason I find that interesting, I think a lot of people see programming as a thing that they can't get into or couldn't possibly understand, and introducing it as a topic earlier in education might be good at unlocking that for people where they don't feel that they're totally locked out of it. We got a new question in. So I have one question regarding autistic kids. Do you have any suggestions on how to teach them? From Kate Gallo or Gaio?
How to teach them? If they are interested on it, they will be the ones leading. Like, even if they are not interested, it doesn't matter what you're gonna do. So if you can pick their interest into something they want to do, then that's it. With autistic kids, you have to try a lot of things and figure out what clicks. And if programming is what clicks, then it will be super easy for you to teach them. But if it doesn't click, this stereotype that autistic people are great coders. Some configuration of autistic traits makes for great coders, but that doesn't apply to everybody that is autistic at all. So they may not like it. They may even hate it. You never know.
When you and I were talking kind of before this formal chat here, one thing I heard from you is that for the children who are interested in programming, one thing that might be different in your code club than another code club is, for for example, structure, so that you're always doing the same introduction. You're getting started coding at the same time, and also that idea of routine is really helpful to make, maybe autistic children who are interested feel more comfortable in that space. Would you say that's true?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, routine and predictability will make a long way. Like if you start every day, they know what to expect. They know where they are going. If you can use the same room every day, start with introductions. What is the new people that is coming? Questions, blah blah, and at the end, show and tell. And they know what to expect. They will cope a lot better. Some people will not have problems with that, but if you make it easier for everybody, then you're always getting better, right? And online, we do the same thing. We get every day at the same time. We do the introductions, and now, like every 2 weeks, I get a guest that is there to just answering questions from them, and they know every other week there's gonna be a guest. But other than that, yes, structure is really, really important, and routine. Yeah, good point. Thanks for reminding me that.
Okay. So another question has come through. Now, I apologize in advance for this. Osvaldo Huerta. I would like to introduce my nephews to programming. How can I start?
Yeah, well, you can show them scratch and see if making a cat move around the screen is something that is interesting. Or if they're younger, they're like programming style toys that could be interesting. But Scratch is very, very easy to catch, and you can do very visual things. It's similar to but in a completely different level.
Yeah, I would add to that if you're not familiar with Scratch, when you go on the Scratch website, there are projects that you can, what they call remix. So if someone's made a version of Pong, or they've made a version of, oh, I don't know, they've got games and little things that they've made, and you can actually like basically copy it and drop it in your kid's little profile, and then they can go in and change the blocks. So that's like an interesting way to see the cause and effect stuff straight away. And then you can kind of move forward from there into building your own kind of little programs. There are books that support it. I can maybe leave it in the YouTube or something later, because the version that I have that I'm working with is in Norwegian. Oh, so I am currently living in Norway. I'm Canadian. I've lived in Ireland. So right now I'm teaching in Norwegian. So all the books I have for small children for Python at the moment are Norwegian. But I do know they have English copies. And it takes you through Scratch in the first half of the book, and then in the back half of the book, it takes you through basic Python scripts. So how do we change these little blocks into actual executable code? My 10-year-old nephew has successfully gotten partway through this book through Skype calls with me. It's possible. He's very interested in Fortnite and strange things on YouTube. It can be hard to connect with him, but he's engaging in this book, so I can recommend that.
Yeah. Another thing is that there is the resources for Code Club and Code Dojo that you can just go on the website and look at the projects. You don't have to run a Code Club or a Code Dojo to use these resources. They are just free for everyone to use. So you can just get one, get the first projects, figure out this is what you will be doing. Do you want to do it? And then it's like, yeah. Then you go step by step, seeing how to get there. And the projects are very, very easy to follow. And as I said, you don't have to have your own Code Club or Code Dojo to use these resources. But joining other kids with the same interests is really, really good for motivation.
Yeah, for sure. Even if you can just get 3 or 4 kids, cousins, people you knew at school into a Zoom, every week or two. Kids learn by play, and they play better with other kids than with adults. They just like going in and mucking around with things.
Alrighty. Okay. so I think we've run out of questions, and I think we've covered all of our topics quite nicely. So I'm gonna go ahead and just outro here. So thanks so much to Naomi and Raul for joining us.
Thank you.
Oh, what's this? Late arrival? Fala Hassan asks, is it important to learn algorithms and data structures before one can start programming? Can you please recommend some good resources to do this?
I would say no. You need to learn flow. Like if you know how to do if, else, and while, that is way more important than algorithms themselves and data structures that are for more complicated stuff. And in particular for kids, is goal-driven learning. For example, past week, one of my kids has said, I want to make an online multiplayer game. And I told him, good, you're going to learn a lot of things. And because he really wants to make this online multiplayer game, now he's motivated to learn what a online real-time database is and how it works and how he can configure rooms for different players and how to handle concurrency and all that. But if I try to teach him that, it won't work.
And the other thing there is, again, building on what you're saying, one exercise I've done in Coder Dojo is you pre-print arrows. Some have like a corner and some are straight. And again, goal-directed learning, you get 3 or 4 kids and you say, okay, your goal is to get from this chair to that ball over there. And you can only use one command at a time. And this is how we're teaching things like loops and that. And at some point, you can restrict how many pieces of paper they can use. And they can start to work through the flow and the logic of, but what does it really mean to get from here to there? And they start to literally actually physically step through. First, we must step forward once or we're trapped in the start box. Then we must step forward one more time. Then we must turn right. And that can be a completely offline physical activity to get that kind of thinking going.
Right. So I'll once again transition us out unless a really great question comes in. or if one of you has, got something you need to do, I can just transition us out straight away. So yes, one last look at the chat. Okay, so thanks so much to Naomi and Raul again for coming and joining us. Thanks to Darren. Oh, Naomi's waving. I better put her back on screen. Well, now wave. Okay, and thanks to Darren for volunteering. Unfortunately, technical difficulties kept him away from us. And thanks so much to Charity here for assisting me in managing the chat. She is also waving even though there's no camera on her. You could lean in and wave on this camera. Yep, there it is. And that's a wrap. Thanks so much for joining us in our first proper online streamed meetup. There will be more to come. If you'd like to get involved, you know how to find us.